Well, today we have a very special guest, of course, one of the most jacked people to ever walk through the streets of Winnipeg, who now moved over to Burlington, Ontario. Mark Sandor. Mark, you've been doing some online coaching. You've mastered the art of bulking, and I'm really excited to chat with you today about bodybuilding, coaching people online, remembering great bodybuilders, rest in peace, and all sorts of fun stuff.
Absolutely, man. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to get to chat with you and, actually meet face to face in person after, coordinating online for the last few months and probably over a year, maybe even now.
As we were just chatting about before recording, we're talking about some favorite bodybuilders, and Rich Piana, of course, is the first person he's the first person that always comes to mind, especially when I think about guys who are bulking and just all the hilarious quotes, all the serious mentality. What do you remember from the first time that you ever watched Rich Piana videos and what you thought of like his routine and his message?
I mean, I just thought of how crazy he looked. Like when like, he's just so absurdly huge. You know what I mean? And like obviously that's super eye-catching. So you see his arms, you see his like everything. He's just a like it's hard to put into words just how much of a beast and how much of a monster he was. So obviously, you start watching him, you're like, okay, obviously this guy knows what he's doing. I'm gonna watch some workouts because no one that doesn't know what they're doing has arms like he does or has, chest or back, like whatever muscle group, because he was a tank. So, and then obviously you watch a little bit of videos, you're like, hey, the workouts are obviously ridiculous. 8 hour arm workout, even some of his other stuff, like they were just like crazy high volume, just like savage workouts. But then you actually hear the way he talks and when he is real with you, like the bigger by the day, those series, and when he would just like wake up every day posting the consistency, the effort, then you kind of realize like, okay, this guy obviously is playing a bit of a character. It's the internet, but if you actually listen to the message and the principles he lives by and some of the things he's saying, like it is pretty fucking true. Like as like dressed up and as like cartoonish as the guy might be, the things he's saying are facts. Like you put like he's like you like this is a sport you get in what you get out what you put in. Like he was super raw about like the steroid use, everything that he was doing. So, you start to like build that relationship and the trust with him, and you're like, okay, like he starts to grow on you, regardless of maybe if you judged him at first on how he looked.
Man, I think one of the videos that when I watched it, I was like, you know what? He actually like you put it perfectly. As much as he seems like a cartoon character, because like how could someone have, you know, arms that are 24 and a quarter pumped? Like that's absolutely insane. But the one video where he's like, he's the kids always asking me, like, Rich, young kids like, Rich, what's the best protein powder I get? What's the protein powder? And he's like, eat real food, son. Chicken, steak, eggs. Like, and he's just being an advocate for like eating nutrient dense whole food. Even
Yeah.
though, yeah, like the guy's really popular and has a huge following, especially like being consistent posting content in like 2017 or 16 or 15 was like insane. Like that was just like non-existent, like so unheard of. Any person who was consistent and had everything on brand was guaranteed to go to the top because it was just very rare. And like how he did it was so raw too, like you said. And I think he could have like he could have had brand deals. He could have like been influenced or had people pay him to say things, but he's like, supplement companies are just trying to sell you stuff, like you should really be eating real food, and obviously that's, I guess planned words with the actual products he made himself. But hey man, he was a man of his word. And I think that's something you can respect no matter how many steroids he did or how absolutely gargantuan he looked.
Yeah, and even at the time he said that, he did own a supplement company. Like he had 5% nutrition and he was sponsored actually by Mutant before. So now that I've been hanging out with the Mutant team, I get to hear some like behind the scenes stories, which I can't repeat on camera, but they're hilarious, man. He was like the same person off camera as the same as he was on camera. Like he was just a character, man, just a funny guy. But they loved him. Like everybody at Mutant was like, he was such a nice guy. They all had good things to say about him. So it's
Sometimes it makes me sad to think about like when you start to get invested in somebody's like character and their story, like after they've passed, it's like, man, I wish I could have been there to like just go to an in-person event or like just meet them once and just have that moment to really see what he looked like in real life.
100%, 100%. He was yeah, I mean, he was definitely one of the OG guys that I looked up to. Like when I fitness content, like YouTube content, I started working out in 2013. So like 2013 to 2016, 2017. I loved fitness YouTube. Like I was like, that's religiously watching so many different channels. And he was one of them, man. Like he was probably one of the top channels at the time. He probably still would be if he was alive too.
I mean, many of his videos still have over millions of views, like years and years and years later, like from the original channel he posted on. So like memes help, man. It shows the
Yeah.
power of memes and spreading humor and
His
just
legacy lives on.
yeah, like you can, what one of my favorite Rich Piana memes of all time is like the one where he like walks in like with all the meal prep containers, he's just sitting there. It's like me after stealing all the food from the homeless shelter for my bulk, and he's like, God damn it, I'm exhausted.
That's funny. I like the one where he's like eating the chicken. He's like eating the chicken and rice, and it's like when it's your 8,000th time eating the same meal, he's like, "Holy fuck, tastes so good." I don't know what he says, but he says something like that, and it's so true though. Like, man, you got to eat the same thing, but yeah, man, absolute legend. R.I.P.
I mean, like have some like I know he shares a message that you would agree with in some aspects, but like how did you adapt to some of the things like eating for training? Like he talks about he's like, I love to eat, he's like, no man, you're gonna do like the mutant mass gainer, like you gotta do at least 4 scoops, like 2-3 times a day. And he's
Yep.
like, let's get big, come on. And it's like, man, like how true is that when it comes to your journey from being a skinny kid to bulking and how you had to maybe shift your mentality to actually eat to train and not just be like, ooh, I want to eat it because it tastes yummy and there's sugar and there's sauce and whatever.
Yeah, I mean, it's very true. Like, bro, you got to eat. Like, that's probably the hardest part about it all. Like, it's not, say you're 150 pounds, you could put on 10 or 15, 20 pounds. It's not that hard, but once you've already been bulking and already been gaining weight, and now you're like 180, 190, 200 pounds, like I remember it was so hard for me to go from 190 to 200. Like it took so much effort, so much more food than I've already been eating. And I was like, man, I don't think I'm ever gonna get there. And then same thing, bro. I had to get the mutant mass, throw it back in because I used mutant mass when I first started working out. Like dude, I went through like probably 100 pounds because I just like I didn't really know what to eat. So I'm like, okay, like this is a weight gainer. So just like marketing tactics, basically, like if you're skinny, drink this and it'll help you put on weight. I'm like, oh, okay, like let's give this a shot. And like Rich Piana was promoting it too at the time, which is kind of funny. So it actually worked for me, but I started eating because luckily my brother had a trainer too. So he was already pretty into the gym when I got into it, and that's actually how I got into it. So I saw what my brother Nick was eating. Same, literally, my brother's name is Nick. Same with yours. Kind of funny. Um, so I saw what Nick was eating. He had a coach. Like it's actually Grant Reed was like his first coach back in like
Oh, no
2013.
way.
OG G Fit, like way back in the day. Pretty funny. So he had a basic meal plan, but he was making gains from it, right? It was working. So I pretty much hopped on the same meal plan that I saw my brother eating. I remember I would skip breakfast. Nick was eating eggs and bagels and blah, blah, blah. He starts getting huge. I'm like, fuck, okay, I'm gonna have to start eating eggs. Obviously, at the same time, I'm watching like videos with like, Rich Piana, all these different bodybuilders, and they're showing kind of what they're eating now too. And I'm like, okay, like, I guess this is just what you got to do. So slowly I started getting into it, but it never gets easier. Like eating the same food is not that bad, but once you got to eat so much of it all the time, like it becomes a full-time job. It's just it's insane. And even now, like I'm literally bulking right now. I've put on 20 pounds over the last like probably 4 or 5 months, and it's a grind, bro. Like it's unbelievable. Like it's way harder than cutting, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I started with a cut like when I first did course program, and after that I was like, wow, like like it starts to get a little bit harder. Like, you obviously can't be in a deficit forever. But when I thought about bulking, and when I hear guys like, yeah, I'm eating like 3,000 calories for maintenance, I was like, dude, like I can't recall the last time I even ate 3,000 calories in a day. And like, I'm sitting there thinking, like, guys are eating more than this. Like, how the hell do you eat that much? Especially, it's not like you're not just eating like a bag of chips or things that are so calorically dense and bad for you. It's like you're eating good, real food. Like, you're eating
Yeah.
like chicken, steak, whatever. Like, you have to eat like an insane amount of
Yeah. Oh,
good
yeah.
food just to like for even to hit maintenance feels like it's like half the day spent doing that.
Yeah, oh yeah. So imagine when you start bulking and you gotta up it by like 1,000 or 1,500 calories. Like bro, it's insane. It's a full-time job, literally. Like eating 5, 6 meals a day is a full-time job because you gotta prep it, you gotta cook it, you gotta wash the dishes, you gotta go to the grocery store. Like there's a lot like of back end work that you gotta do on top of the eating. I was eating like I'm eating right now like 1.5 kg of rice a day, plus like oats, plus cream of rice, so I'm eating like, I don't know, how many pounds of food would that be? Like probably 5 pounds of food a day at least. It adds up. And then yeah, it's hard, bro. Plus you get tired, right? Like you carb crash, you eat a huge meal, you want to take a nap after. Imagine doing that fucking every 3 hours you're eating, you got to take a nap after. So it like destroys your productivity as well.
Man, honestly, the fact that you can like coach people online and eat like that much food in a day is like you literally have two full-time jobs. Like that's insane. I couldn't even imagine doing that.
I'm so excited to like not have to eat like this. I've been doing this for since August, and now it's almost February. So I got a few more months though. I basically, yeah, I'm gonna do it for a few more months, and then I'm gonna do a prep. Like, so I'm gonna do a contest at the end of the year. That's why I'm doing this, just to grow for the show. So once the show comes, I'm gonna chill. Like the food kind of comes back down, and then you're comfortable probably for a month, and then you start starving yourself, and that's kind of the grind.
Yeah, man. I mean,
All right, though.
what I know that sometimes there's mixed opinions and reviews on like people who bulk or like how much you need to bulk and whatnot, but what are your thoughts on people who are unsure, like if they're on the fence about bulking and who should and who shouldn't?
I mean, it depends where you're at. Like if you're fat, bro, you got to cut. Depending how fat you are, but if you're obese or like over like severe like 20% body fat plus, you should cut for sure. Like you want to get rid of that extra body fat. Get rid of it. It'll probably take a couple months and then you can go to maintenance and then start increasing the calories. If you're like 15%, like you could kind of do both. You could bulk or cut. If you're 18%, I would still cut. I just like getting down to like 12, 13% before bulking people, but it's not unheard of for people who are overweight to go into a bulk. It's just you're not going to see the gains. Like you're not really going to see much for it. So I think it's better to cut, but it really depends on the person and like their
That,
situation, their circumstance, their body fat, what they look like.
that's fair. I mean, I know even too that like I don't know. I guess you probably don't have much experience in like probably more experience in training guys than girls, right?
I've trained a lot more men, but I've trained, I don't know, probably dozens of women too.
And what have like do you offer different advice when it comes to let's say women who are cutting because like a classic thing that women may fall trapped to is like if they're cutting but like they're a lot smaller, weigh a lot less. Like how do you
I
kind
mean, you
of
just adjust the calories for how big they are. Like girls still got to eat a lot of food. You know what I mean? Like they still got to eat a decent amount of food. You just adjust it. Obviously, if it's because if it's a 5'8" male who weighs 150 pounds or a 5'4" girl who's 150 pounds, like the calories are actually not that much off because their body weight's very similar. Obviously their height is a little different, but for the guy, you're gonna have to increase his calories if he's trying to bulk. But for the girl, the maintenance calories are almost the same. You just bring them down a little bit. So it's not really that different. And I'm training lifestyle clients. I think when you get into like when you're like getting dieting girls down to like 10% body fat, then it's a little bit more precarious because you have to watch their hormones and things like that. Because if you crash them, then they're going to feel like shit. They're going to run into a bunch of problems, which they probably will anyway, if they're dieting down that hard, because it's not healthy for girls to be, you know, probably below 10% body fat or maybe even 12% body fat. But for lifestyle clients, like just to get them to a healthy BMI, it's not that different, to be honest.
so when it came to online coaching, when did you know that you wanted to start training people and what was the game plan that you laid out to start doing that?
Okay, that's a good question. So when I first got into it, I think this was probably 2018. I had already just been working out. I saw other online coaches. Well, I was like, dude, I was such a big fan of YouTube and like seeing these guys like getting paid to make workout videos. I'm like, damn, bro, like I wonder if I could do something similar. So that was kind of my main inspo. I just didn't really know how to approach it. So I'm like, okay, I want to get paid to go to the gym. Like, how could I get paid just to work out? So that was kind of my first thought. I'm like, okay, well, I could start putting out content. I can start trying to grow social media pages. I could start doing this. It's like, okay, so like it was very, bro, it was like such a grassroots like level the way I started. I just started posting content and then I started like offering free coaching programs, free workout plans, diet plans, everything free. I started getting, obviously people were interested in free programs. The problem is like no one actually did it because when it's free, they don't give a shit about it. But I was also 22, so like not a lot of people are going to take me seriously just because when you're younger, I feel like older, like say a guy's 35, he doesn't want to work with a 22-year-old. He wants to work with like a grown man. So that was the other
Yeah.
problem, but at least it built me experience and I got to see like, okay, like this is kind of how this works. I started getting my foot in the door, being like, hey, like if you want to pay $50 for a training plan, I'll do this. They'll be like, oh yeah, let's do it, bro, blah, blah, blah. So it was a lot of that. And then I eventually like worked up, you know what I mean? Like after years, I hired a business coach. I learned how to actually like sell properly, how to program, what programs to use for coaching to make the experience better. Just ways that I can improve my own coaching program to make it more sellable and make it more attractive to prospective clients. And then that took, honestly, bro, it's just like kneading bread, bro. Like you got to keep working it until it gets to the right consistency and the right thing that you want. And then once I've been asking my clients, I'm like, hey, is there anything you want to see me improve or change? Or like, bro, we actually love it. Then I knew like, okay, this product, like my coaching is good enough. I just need to now market it better and sell it better. You know what I mean? So,
Mhm.
but that took years, bro. Like literally, this started like I started in 2018. It probably started like being like, wow, I could actually make a living off this like 2 or 3 years later. And then like 2 years ago, I was like, okay, now I can make even more than a living. Like I'm not like super worried about like I'm not like broke where I'm like like I have a lot. I can like instead of being so in the dirt, like grinding, I can like look up and be like, okay, let's be a little bit more strategic now. Like let's look up. Maybe I can even go on a vacation. Maybe I can like not that you want to take your foot off the gas too much, but it's like okay, like I have some extra spending money. I'm not like living super broke all like not super broke, but like kind of strapped for cash for a long time, especially during COVID, bro.
Especially like so essentially what you're saying is when you go to the grocery store, you no longer are concerned with the price of chicken. You just are gonna buy it anyways.
Yeah, and I'll buy multiple packs. Like it's not just always looking for everything that's on sale. It's like, okay, let's just buy what we need. I remember when I wanted to hire a coach back in the day, obviously I'm 28 now, so I guess it's different when you're like 23, 24, and it was like $200 a month. I'm like, oh my God, it's going to cost me $200 a month. Like that's so much fucking money. But it was a lot at the time, but now it's like, once you realize like the value you get into like investing in coaches and things like that, it's like, oh, it's only $200. Okay, let's do it.
Like that's nothing. Like the guy did you a favor, literally. Like
So that's kind of the mindset shift. But yeah, it's a grind, bro. Like honestly, but for anything, it's gonna be a grind. Like everyone, anytime you start anything, it's like it's never gonna just happen in a week, a month. Like even your brother, bro, he's been grinding for how many years before probably the last year it really popped off for him,
like
you
since
know?
2017, 18, like literally the exact same time as you.
Exactly. And now his like, it's like a hockey stick curve growth. So that's how it is. If you could just grind out like that flat, like slowly, like the 1% degree angle upward until it hits that fucking hockey stick growth. That's the part that lasts years that people can't stick out. But once you hit that growth, it's like, it literally you can make more money in the next like 2 years than the previous 4 years combined. So you can really start to like rebuild and get ahead essentially.
Well, I think it was I saw like Hormozy make a tweet about it. It's like things are gonna be hard before they become easy.
Hmm.
So it's and the good thing about doing hard stuff is that it teaches you what you used to think was hard isn't as actually hard as you thought it was. And then it makes you question what you're really capable of.
Yeah, it definitely opens up your mind. And then you also start meeting more successful people. And then you're like, oh man, like, like, okay, this could, like, you start to learn things, right? You start to hang around people. You're like, oh man, like, there's more to this game too. Like, it doesn't just, like, it could stop here. If you're content, right, making 5 or 10 grand a month, like, that's your gravy, bro. That's literally compared to the rest of the population. You're already winning. You're already making more money than probably 90% of people. But if you want to go to like multi six figure and beyond, then it's a different ballgame. You got to work harder. You got to work a little bit smarter. You can't just be trading your time for money, or you got to be trading your time for like a shitload of money. Like $500 an hour, $600 an hour versus like $50 an hour, because you're gonna have to work a lot of hours if you're gonna get paid that much. But Yeah, it's just a different ball game, and then you just keep leveling up, right? And then eventually maybe you'll get content. I don't know. I'm not yet, so I want to keep growing.
Man, 1,000%. Everything you said is so true. And it really just gets the gears turning in your mind. You talk about meeting other people, and then you start to notice, like, when you start to see other people who are more successful and like asking them questions and like learning from them, you're like, oh, like there's still like the more you learn, the more you realize I actually don't know a lot. So I should probably keep learning versus like,
100%.
oh yeah, I did well, or I'm a big fish in a small pond. Great. And honestly, I think that's like like if I could guess, that's probably what was tied into your decision to move to the GTA versus like just continue to stay in Winnipeg and be like, oh, I'm chilling, like it's cheap to live here, like whatever.
Yeah, that's literally the exact thought I had. I'm like, okay, I'm not really learning. Like, there's some guys in Winnipeg doing very well, obviously. Handful of them though, like especially in the fitness space, maybe a hand, like two of them, literally, like one or two guys. Um, and then here, dude, I went to the gym. I'm like, I remember back in Winnipeg, people would ask me help for like social media and just coaching and blah blah blah. Bro, I came here. Now the gym I go to, I went from, I don't want to say being like the top in Winnipeg, but one like closer to the top. And now I'm at, bro, I'm barely middle of the pack here because there's so much competition here, which is crazy. But that's what I like. Now I'm around like, now I'm around people who they're not making 10 grand a month, bro. They're making 50 a month. They're making 60 a month. They're making 100 a month. Like they're making ridiculous amounts of money. So, and they're coaching, dude, they're charging $200 an hour for like in-person training. That's absurd. But people here also have more money. So you can charge things like that. Not everybody, like these guys are pro bodybuilders. They're established. They've been, they're like master trainers. But that's what you want to evolve to over time. That's not really a thing in Winnipeg. So if you want to eventually get to that level, you kind of have to leave. And even if you just read books on people who became successful, they all left their home city. It's almost like a requirement for success. Like you have to be willing to travel, you have to be willing to take risks, because that's what 99% of people aren't willing to do. So if you want to be the 1%, bro, you got to do the shit that the 1% do, which is take those risks, quit the job, start the business, network, move, travel, and just keep rinsing and repeating that process. And then, you're going to refine your skill over time.
Yeah, man, especially when it comes to even just like both being from Winnipeg and I mean, you're also born 96, right?
I'm at 95.
95. Okay, so you're older. Yeah, so it's like almost around the same age, like from Winnipeg. And every time I come back here, people always say, oh, so you're in Winnipeg for good? I'm like, for now. Because I feel like while it's a place that you can never change being home, I feel like for the people who have higher ambitions, it's never a place that you'll settle permanently because there's always the next level or the next thing that you want to move on to. And I know even like if Toronto was the first time you moved from home, it's like, you know, think about the other places you can move to. It's like then when you meet guys like Corey and Corinne who like live in Florida, then it's like, oh,
Oh,
like
bro, I love Florida.
yeah, like you're the top in Canada, but guess what? Like now there's Miami or now there's New York or now there's whatever. And it's just like,
Yeah.
and then boom, like then your whole mind is just blown because you think about the size of the US, how it's 10x Canada's population,
Yeah.
10x the opportunities, and it just goes insane. And then you start to then you unlock a whole new a whole new game. It's just completely different.
Yeah. My end goal is probably to move to Florida one day, probably in the next couple of years. Like that, I would love to live in Florida.
Yeah, man.
Like the quality of
Florida's
life in Ontario is so much better than Winnipeg. The only problem is it's expensive here, but obviously the opportunity for growth is, exponential compared to Winnipeg. And the market you're exposed to here, the networking, the people you can meet, obviously like those opportunities will never happen back home in Winnipeg. But yeah, Winnipeg, it's cool, bro. Like I don't want to talk bad about it because I have a lot of friends there, but if you want to, depending what industry you're in, bro, if you're in real estate, if you're in different things, you can do very well in Winnipeg. Obviously, like getting to the top of the Winnipeg real estate game versus getting to the top of Vancouver, Toronto is going to be, you can make $1 billion in Toronto. You could probably make like 10 or 20 million in Winnipeg, maybe. You know what I mean? So the scales are a little
Mhm.
bit different. Obviously, bro, either way, you're gravy, you're doing well for yourself. It's just if you want to, hey man, if you just want to like I don't know, bro. You just have to move. Like it just is what it is. There's no like literally in my opinion, you have to move if you want to become as successful as you possibly can be.
Yeah, I don't think I would disagree with that. I mean, considering that I've literally moved like to BC three different times, to Ontario twice, to Regina, to Saskatchewan once, and to Alberta once. So like
Yeah,
all in the
you're
span of like 7 years. Like,
yeah, that's a lot. That's crazy. That's I've only moved to this is my first time traveling or moving.
yeah, I mean, plus like last year traveled to like five, like traveled in five continents. So it's
In
like,
Brazil, all these places.
yeah. So I think, and that's also too like why I always say to people, like you should always just try to travel as much as you can in general to different places because like, listen, man, like who doesn't like going to an all-inclusive vacation resort in Mexico? Like that's nice, but there's something to be said about going to places where you don't know the language or you don't know the culture and you're learning completely new things, and it helps you grow as a person, and it can translate into whatever it is you're doing, and especially in fitness. Like for example, when I was in Cape Verde in Africa, and actually that's like I got this there, like it's the jersey of the national soccer team. When I was there, there was only a few gyms I found. The country's pretty small. Like the population of the entire country, all 10 islands is like 500K. So and the main island's
In South
250.
Africa?
It's in West Africa.
Oh, West Africa. Oh, okay. I thought you
Yeah.
said South Africa. My bad.
So like it's like very, 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 very small. And there's only a few gyms here and there. But what I noticed there was a lot more of were like calisthenic gyms. Like you go to the beach and the name of the capital city is literally the word for beach in Portuguese. And so everywhere you go on the beach, there's like fitness park. Like you can do like dips, pull-ups,
Sick.
like everything. So even in Brazil, like when Nicholas and Tiago and I were in Brazil, like, we found that there were way more fitness parks where you do body weight stuff than there was actual gyms that people pay for. Like obviously we paid to go to the gym in Brazil because it's like whatever. Like, you know,
Yeah.
you got to get a pump in. It's not the same, but like the desire to improve yourself exists outside of the scope of like going to a Good Life or an Atalo or whatever it is in Canada, right? Because like people around the world don't always have access to the best gyms like we do, but it doesn't mean that they don't want to get better. And then when you go to other places and meet people who are trying to get ripped, or man, like you want to talk about bulking, like go to Fiji and go work out with the guys who play for the rugby team. Like that's that'd be a great experience to learn, like, and be beside guys who are just absolute warriors. Like they're huge, like
Yeah.
every single guy, because their metabolism is so slow. Like they are the kings of bulking, and they're just absolute units, and their workout routines are just insane. So like I think there's something to be said about when you get to see how people work out in other countries.
I mean, that'd be sick, bro. Yeah, no, absolutely. That'd be super fun. I haven't traveled as much as I want to, but that's because I've just been saving money, honestly. Like I spent
I
so much
blame
time
you.
on my business where all my extra funds were basically just going back in. And then COVID hit and I lost so much money. Like bro, COVID was such a bad time. Um, so now I'm kind of rebuilding, but even now, bro, like even if I can afford to go, I still want to just save money. Like COVID scared me so bad, and now that I'm moved out, I'm like, if anything happened, like I don't want to move back home, so I need to make sure I'm good. Like save your 6 month rainy day fund, all that stuff. But even that, I'm like, bro, I'd rather save like a 2 year rainy day fund, or like you know what I mean, like really really stack cash because for so long, bro, again, and everybody talks about this when they first start a business is how much you're going to get kicked in the teeth. Um, and even once you start making more money, is like you don't want to just elevate your lifestyle with it. Like you really want to like live as not like a little bit more like frugal, I guess, but you want to, you don't want to ball out too much. And then when bad times come around, it's like, fuck, man, I spent like 4K on a vacation here. I spent another 2K here. I spent 1,500, 4 grand, 8 grand. And then before you know it, you're like, bro, that could have saved me like that could have been saving my ass right now. So maybe, I don't know, maybe once I have a little bit more security, I'll probably look more into it. But it just still like after getting after what happened during COVID, bro, I'm just like that scarred me for spending large amounts of money for thing like I get the experience side of things and how important it is to go, but it just bro, COVID scarred me so bad that I'm just so scared to spend money over probably like $1,000 now.
No, I mean, like I think, well, like when it comes to investing, like obviously money is gonna have to be spent regardless. So I think when you talk about investing in your business, like
I have no
that's
problem
some
spending money on my business.
yeah, like something like that is like you're reinvesting into your business so that it can like make more. You know, it's not like you're not going to spend money on your business because like how do you expect to grow and get better? Like you spend money on coaching in the beginning and think about the return on that investment, and then think about the return on investment you could get from spending more money with someone who's like better or knows more things. Like obviously price doesn't always correlate to value necessarily. It depends on what you're looking for, but still, like it's just an important idea to always invest in yourself to create a higher earning potential so then you can make more in a shorter amount of time and then you can stack piece easier and then not have to worry about like crazy shit happening
Yeah, that's
as
kind of what
much.
my mindset was. Like I was like, okay, let me just put more money back into this. Let me try and make, I don't know, 10, 15, 20, 30 grand a month. And then in 2 months, I can save like 30 grand, because my bills won't obviously match that remotely close. And then it's like, okay, maybe if I want to go on a vacation, then we'll consider it. But um, yeah, I think people get too concerned about spending money like that. And it's like, bro, just focus on really making sure your money's coming in consistently. Like you don't want to lose momentum. That's kind of a big problem with business is like once you get momentum and you lose it, it's hard to get it back. So you want to keep that momentum going. I look at it like rappers, bro, like artists, like musicians. There's rappers that have could have went way harder, but they stayed underground. There's rappers that like, they all kind of whoop, and then they go down. Then Drake's way at the top, Kendrick way at the top. So like just because you start getting a buzz, you don't want to just like go like this and then peter out because you started making a little bit of money and then you fucked off and you started losing focus and you lose the momentum. And then, there's all these different heights that different rappers get to. So that's what I think about. Kind of the same thing with influencing and, on like online coaching, but in terms of like social media, I want to like, bro, I want to blow it up way more until it's basically like impossible to be broke after. If you have hundreds of thousands or millions of followers, it's pretty much impossible to be broke or poor after that. Like, I mean, making less than like 20 grand a month. Like, you have to suck at what you do to make less than that. So, that's also the thing that worries me. Although traveling is important for that because networking at different events does help, you know, meet different people that could help you grow your socials. But just trying to maintain the momentum without, oh, let's go on a trip to Mexico, let's go here, and getting distracted. um that's kind of what I'm focused on mainly, even though I could technically work anywhere.
Yeah, man. I feel that. And I guess it depends too, like on each person's preference, right? Because like for example, like if you had to pay for an apartment in the GTA, you're not just gonna like go on a vacation every month when you're already paying rent and whatever for it to be empty. Like, you know, for people who are like digital nomads, like that's what I usually think of because it's like then you're you're not paying rent, like you're paying like a very reduced amount to stay in a certain place. But then the offsetting cost is like if you have to fly somewhere, then obviously it can be a little bit more expensive. But it depends on obviously where you are in the world, right? If you're like in Southeast Asia or you're flying within Europe, then it's like nothing. But if you're like flying within Canada or the US or North America, then it's like, yeah, you can rack up $1,000 flight easily. Like go to Costa Rica, it's like, no, you're not spending 200 bucks. Like you're literally paying like 800 to 900 to fly from Canada, unless you're going from the US. But even still, it's like there's always a catch to what like our costs to each situation you're in. And so like and how do you view traveling, right? Do you view it as like a vacation and you're doing nothing, or do you view it as like you're doing work and you're still like and you're still building? So I mean,
The
that's
only time I travel if I can make it a business trip and it's a tax write-off.
yeah, exactly, exactly.
That's pretty much
Like
the only reason. Like it's hard, bro. It's once you probably know this too. Once you start a business, it's impossible to shut off. Like it's almost impossible not to think about it all the time. So even when I like go on a vacation and I'm not working, bro, all I'm thinking about is it. Like, you know what I mean? Like if I'm not working on it, nobody is. Like it's not moving. Like I need to be on it all the time. Um, so it's like it gets to the point where you can't even relax when you're traveling because that's kind of all you're thinking about. Like you could take brief moments where it's like, oh, for 6 hours I didn't think about it, but in the evening I'm going to work on it, or in the morning before I go, I'm working on it. You know what I mean? So it's not really, I don't know, bro. It's just it's fun, but it's not as fun as when you used to work a job and you got 2 weeks pay and you can go anywhere you want and you don't have to think about work. As soon as you get off work, your brain shuts off. You don't think about it anymore. but you could go travel, you can hang out with friends, you can go do whatever you want. Dude, if you're running your own business or running your own, like a solopreneur or whatever, you don't really have that luxury anymore, which is, yeah, you can make more money doing so like being a solopreneur, depending on what kind of, job. If you're a doctor, you're all right, but an engineer, things like that. But if you're doing this, like you pretty much have to be switched on all the time. There's not a lot of like downtime. So it's kind of one of the negatives of running your own thing.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's always a cost to everything, right? Like think about like, there's the feeling of being trapped and having the same routine and having no freedom, right? Like what is it? What is the thing you value? And oftentimes I don't think enough people ask themselves that question, like, what do I really value? Because some people are like, oh, I value making money, but then you can't quit your job because you have a mortgage and four kids and a car and a second car and a this and a that. And then it's like, yeah, maybe you don't have to worry about running your own business. So you can just turn your brain off when you get home from work. But like, guess what? You got a lot of other responsibilities to think about as soon as you get home. So you can't just go on vacation whenever you want. Or when you go on vacation, then it's like you're pinching pennies or you're so worried or whatever it is. But like, yeah, when you're a solopreneur, when you're an entrepreneur in general, like you're always on, but like if you're okay with being always on because it's something you care about, then maybe it's not as bad.
It's not. You get
Uh
used to it, bro. You get used to it. But it's just something people don't really get. It's like, oh, you have money. Why don't you go on a vacation? It's like, bro, I just don't enjoy myself on vacation. Like I could, and I would be happy when I'm there. But at the same time, in the back of my head, I'm like, man, did I get are all my clients good? Did I get any texts from my clients that I've missed? You know what I mean? Like that's all those thoughts creep into my head, and it almost spoils what I'm doing because I start stressing out about it. So it's just better for me to be like, that's why I don't think I could do the digital nomad lifestyle. Like dude, the time changes, all these different things. Maybe if I got used to it, sure, but I like being consistent, routine. I'm also bodybuilding, so like traveling fucks up my gains. So I have to,
100%.
you know what I mean? Like it has to be very routine. I have to eat the same thing every day. I have to go to the gym all the time. I have to, like, it has to be a very routine lifestyle. So if I valued going and traveling and doing all these different things, then it would get in the way of my bodybuilding, which is something that I'm, I'd say that's like the second or third biggest focus of my life right now. Maybe once I do these shows, I'll be able to be like, okay, maybe like I'm going to compete at the end of the year. After that, maybe I'll be like, okay, I'm going to chill on the bodybuilding side of things. I'll go back into coaching, or you know what I mean? Like kind of reevaluate the play, like the playing field again and go from there. But right now I know I'm just so focused on just getting huge that I know if I traveled, I'd lose 8 pounds or 10 pounds and I'd lose all this weight that I need because I've worked so hard to put it on that the cost benefit or yeah, the cost benefit is just so skewed for um in the wrong direction that it's just not worth it. But I want to, bro. I want to travel so bad still.
No,
'Cause-
I mean that's a great point you bring up because I know a lot of people, like you said, they'll just be like, "Oh yeah, like you make money online, or you do your own things. Like, why don't you just go wherever you want or just do whatever?" It's like, well, no, like the thing that got me in this position is not going out and doing whatever I want. Like, the only time I get to do that is if either I sell or if I get to a point where I'm no longer doing any of the day-to-day operations of the business at all. And that's
yeah.
different. Once you get to that point, but then it's like you said with the rappers, once you get to that point, then you can be hands off, all good. Someone's managing it. You hired a CEO and then you're just the face. That's it. And once you get to that point, hey, mate, like, but it may take 5, 10, 15 years. You never know. But once you get there, then you're in a different position. But also, it does take a lot of time to get there.
It does, man. So and the other like yeah, I don't know. I just don't get comfortable, right? Like once you start making a little bit of bread, it's like, okay, cool. But again, man, COVID just showed me how quick everything could be taken away. So it's like you want to like if COVID ever came around again and I saved all this money during like the 4 or 5, I don't know, however many years I worked, but say there's another huge economic downturn, but I saved like crazy amounts of money. And then at that point, okay, business is slowing down, these things are slowing down. Then I'd be like, hey, I have all this money. Maybe now I can go on those vacations that I wanted to. Because everybody else was spending money, doing stupid shit while like times were good, versus like hustling, trying to like stack up as much as possible. And then now times are hard. They spent all their money. They're like, oh my God, I'm going bankrupt. I have no money. I can't do this. They're complaining. Oh, blah, blah, blah. Like inflation, all this fucking shit. It's like, bro, you should have been saving money while times are good. This is the time to stack up and invest when times are good, when you're making money, not like, oh, now times are hard, which is a lesson I learned kind of the hard way. So that's kind of the perspective shit, bro. COVID taught me so much. So I'm just, yeah, I'm just not at that position yet. Maybe soon, but for now, I just want to stack up as much as humanly possible.
Well, you might have already taken away my next question, but I was going to ask, what advice would you give to someone who's starting in their early 20s to whether it be build an online fitness business or building an online business in general?
Um, okay, so the best advice, if you're building an online business, obviously you need to be good at what you do. Like get good at it, start building your social media. Yeah, I mean, can you specify your question? Like just general advice for anybody starting an online business?
Yeah, like I would say just maybe in the fitness space. Like if someone was like early 20s trying to start a fitness business online and they're like, "Hey Mark, I look up to you, man. Like, what advice could you give me to help me out when I'm starting my journey?"
Yeah, so if you want to start coaching, I would say get clear on who you want to coach and then start creating content that solves their problems. I know coaches with 2000, like, don't worry about the fucking followers. That was a huge trap I fell into because it looks dope. Like, oh, I hit 4 million views and got thousands of followers, blah, blah, blah. And it's good because you can get paid like that too. But it's way harder and you need a huge profile. Trust me, brand deals are not as lucrative as people think until you have hundreds of thousands of followers, which is going to take you years to grow. Or you can build 3,000 followers, have 50 clients paying you 300-400 bucks a month. Now you're making, I don't even know how much that money is, probably 15 grand a month, and you're gravy, bro. Like that's a lot of money. So I would focus on that, bro. Don't focus on going viral. Don't focus on just arbitrarily getting followers that aren't going to spend money with you. Focus on providing value, solving problems, speaking to your target audience clearly, hitting their emotional needs, and just solving as many problems for them as you can, because that's going to build the trust and that's going to want them to be like, oh man, this guy really speaks to me. I'm going to sign up with him because I've already gotten so much value from his videos that that trust is built. They're going to spend money with you so much easier, versus like, oh, I made a retarded video. It got 4 million follower or 4 million views, but it's like empty calorie views because you don't really get any real benefit out of it besides like your social media page looking cooler because there's more followers and people, that kind of like it looks good, let's be honest. But it doesn't really, you don't really make any more money from it. So I would focus on that. And again, I know guys with literally 2 or 3 thousand followers making 15K a month off their following. So don't necessarily correlate big followers to big success. Because if those 2 or 3 thousand followers are diehards, that is so much more valuable than having 200,000 followers where only 10 of them give a fuck about you. So just focus on building that, like your brother, bro. He did it really well. Um, and I know some other guys that have huge followings that also built a huge loyal audience, and it's crazy, bro, what they're doing.
Yeah, man, that's such key advice because social media is like there's a meme of Homer Simpson where he's like standing and flexing on Marge or flexing to Marge and he looks shredded, but all the fat is like
Behind them.
tied to
Yeah.
hairpins behind him. And it's like that's really what it's like on social media. Like everyone thinks that they think one thing of just based on what they see, but then they don't actually know what's really going on behind the scenes. And my brother's obviously a perfect example of like, oh, but he doesn't have like tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of followers. Yeah, but he probably makes more than most people who are like just trying to go viral for the sake of going viral. Like, yeah, going viral can help like get attention or maybe increase familiarity, but like it doesn't equal dollars. So like you want to have people, like you said, who care about what you're doing. And I think was it Grant Cardone or he's the one who said the idea of like 1,000 true fans or like somebody like
I think it
a
might have
thousand
been
true
Paris.
yeah, but like 1,000 true fans is better than like a million people who like just
Yeah,
you want people
exactly.
to like love you or hate you, not like, oh yeah, whatever. I know this person. Like,
Yeah, exactly. So if you could build that, that's the most important thing. But it's just gonna take time. Like, again, this shit is not gonna, it took me years, it took everybody years, bro. Like some guys do pop off in a year, and they hit that stride like very quickly. But I'd say that's an abnormality. Like for the most people, like there's always like the Sam Solik just blew up. Now he's probably making 100 grand a month. We're killing it, probably even more, killing it. Everybody thinks like, oh, that's the route to success. It's like, dude, that is 1 in a billion. But a more common thing is just slowly building up over time and making 1,000 bucks a month, 3,000 bucks a month, 4,000, 8,000, 6,000, up to nine, like, and slowly building it. That's going to be 99% of people's experience. Like those Sam Soliks, Alex Eubank a couple years ago blew up. And I know guys that blew up this year that I met out in Ontario that are doing very well for themselves, young guys. But even them, I'm like, bro, like that's not too replicatable. Yeah, is that the right word?
Replicable.
Yeah, that's not very duplicatable because you're the personality and you know how to edit. Like they have these certain set of skills that allowed them to do that. So I'd say for most people, bro, just small steps, baby steps, and just grow that, keep doubling down. It's gonna like just mentally accept that it's gonna take years. I remember when I dropped out of school to pursue this, I was like, I'm gonna give myself until I'm 30 to figure this out. I'm turning 29 in a month. So luckily I beat it. But then it's like once you start making some money and figure it out, that's the easy part because now you got to maintain it. You know what I mean? Like you don't want to just hit 100 grand, 200 grand a year, and then next thing you're making 60 or 50. You know what I mean? Like you want to make money and then maintain it. That's the hard part. That's the key. It's like the Kendrick Lamar thing. Anybody can get to the top, motherfucker. The hard part is staying there or keeping there or whatever Dr. Dre says in that little ad lib. That's the same thing with this, bro. Like you need to, that's why you got to keep doing the same habits that got you there. You know what I mean? You don't want to just like, oh, bro, I'm balling, go buy some Jordans and buy some nice jewelry or whatever. Buy a nice watch or get a car payment. And then next thing you know, it's like everybody stops giving a fuck about you. Your followers don't really care about you. They stop spending money. And then, you know what I mean? You let it get to your head and you fall off. And then now you're making 40 grand and you're like, holy shit, my payments this year are going to cost me like 80 grand. So I'm going to be in the whole 40K. Like, what am I going to do?
Yeah, no, bro, seriously, that's so true. And oftentimes I feel like it's very easy to take for granted. Like, yeah, you succeeded once. Can you do it again?
Yeah, you have
Can you
to.
do it a fourth time? Can you do it a 10th time? Like, you did
Yeah.
it once, so what?
And it's like, what is like, even once you start making that money, it's like, how are you going to double it? Like, is this where you're comfortable and this is where you're going to stay? Or do you want to see if you can double that or triple that or quadruple that or 20x that? Like, what's the limit? You know, because technically, bro, most people probably make $3,000 to $4,000 a month. That's average, I'd say. You know what I mean? Like after taxes, okay, most people make 50 grand a month or whatever, or 50 grand a year. It's like, okay, that's like what, 3 grand a month, 4 grand a month. It's nothing crazy after taxes. So it's like, is that comfortable? Like, is that where you just want to stay? Or do you want to try and get to nine? Do you want to try and get to 15? Do you want to try and get to 25? Like once you start getting into business, it's just a game, right? It's like, what inputs do I need to make to have those outputs, which obviously result in just me becoming more financially successful. And that's usually impacting more people, you know, taking on more clients, becoming a better salesman. There's a whole bunch of different inputs, you know, that you could work on and improve on that is going to ultimately get you to that goal. But yeah, I mean, it just depends on what you want to achieve, right? Some people are good making 60 grand a year, and that's fine. Or 40 grand a year, like whatever they want.
As long as you ask yourself, what game am I trying to win?
Yeah.
As long as you do the things to try to win that game, that's all that matters.
Yeah, exactly. But it's if you want to keep going, like you got to keep getting better. That's, you know, that's a game, right? That's the game. That's why I'm playing it, you're playing it, your brother, like we're all in this. That's why we're friends, right? Because we're all doing this like kind of the different journey, but kind of the same, you know what I mean? And we're all just trying to level up and help each other out too.
I'm curious to know, did you ever struggle with selling when you first had to build your own online business?
Oh,
Or
fuck
how
yeah.
did you
Yeah, bro. When I look at old messages, old like conversations from like 2018 when I first got into it, like I was doing everything wrong. You know what I mean? Like I was literally like doing every single thing wrong in sales. And that, but like once I hired a business coach and I started reading sales books and sales this and getting way deeper into sales, then I realized like, oh shit, like, you know what I mean? Like I was so bad at this, even though I was still maybe closing a deal here or there. But I was so bad at it compared to what sales tactics really are now. Like, you know what I mean? The things that you hear and learn about. But yeah, no, I was fucking horrible at it. Like,
So what did you, I'm curious to know, what did you do to improve? And why do you think you struggled at it? Were there maybe some limiting beliefs that existed there, or was it just straight up
it's just
incompetence, like not knowing how to do it?
like ignorance, bro. I didn't even realize I was actually doing a sales job. Like, you know what I mean? It's like I didn't realize like online coaching, when I'm trying to get you on a program, it is like I'm selling you my program. I never thought about it like that until I hired a business coach. And then that's kind of what they taught us is like, hey, like you have to learn sales. This is a process, and it's a game. Like you have to say certain things and get them to feel a certain way for them to want to buy and purchase your plan. So that's when my perspective totally shifted and I'm like, oh, okay. And then after that, like, you know, way better, huge improvements in terms of like closing and things like that. But you have to like people stop doing shit because they suck at it when they first start. I realized like I'm not good at basically anything when I first get into it. Like I suck at pretty much everything when I first start doing it. But I realized like from doing different things over long periods of time, mostly video games, I'm like, man, if I play like 6 hours of COD a day, like I'm pretty fucking good at this. So it's the same thing with anything, with business, with sales, with coaching, with training, with working out. It's like, bro, if you just put the time in, eventually you're going to become very good at it. You know, but most people don't want to put the time in. Most people play, you know, a certain game. Like, bro, I've been knee deep into chess. I was so bad at it. Now, like I'm still not very good at it, but I'm a lot better than I was. But I was so bad, bro. And then I got obsessed. I'm like, okay, I need to learn, I need to learn, I need to learn. And now I'm pretty good at it compared to like the average population. But it's like most people play 2 games. I'm like, yo, try playing a couple games. They play, they lose. They're like, oh, fuck this, blah, blah, blah. But that's how they do everything. You know what I mean? Like they try something new, they suck at it because why would you even expect to be good when you've never done it before? Like people think that they're good at one thing, that it's just going to apply to everything else. Like they're just going to be experts. They're going to pick it up. Oh, I'm smart. Like you have that thought, right? But then you try something new and it humbles your ass and you're like, fuck, I'm kind of dumb or, you know, I'm just not very good at this. And they're not really willing to put the time and the work in to get better at it. So it's the same
Man,
thing with sales.
the chess example, it hits so hard. Like me on United Airlines, like flying back to Winnipeg or flying to Brazil, and I'm like playing the chess game on the back of the seat, and like I lose twice. I'm like, man, fuck this. Like I'm done. But
Exactly.
in all honesty, when you actually think about it, it like business is literally like a video game.
It
And a
is.
lot of people, especially guys, love playing video games. I'm sure you can think about any video game, like whether it be, RPG or first person shooter or whatever. Like you think about, or sports, you think about it and it's like, how do guys get good at like just dummying anyone an all Madden level? Or how does anyone get good at playing like, Call of Duty, Black Ops or whatever? It's like you play hours and hours and hours and hours and hours. Imagine what you could accomplish if you put the same amount of hours into something you care about that is actually valuable. Because I remember when I first got into learning about sales, I used to think sales was like you're tricking people. It's a jig. You're trying to fool people into getting something they don't need, like a used car salesman or selling
Take
used
oil salesman.
appliances from the yeah, exactly, like snake oil salesman. And now I think about it, it's like, oh, like when I took the course of good life, it's like selling is helping. You're helping people, and you just have to use human psychology to help them break out of their comfort zone because our brains are wired to make us always revert to safety and survival rather than making ourselves better, which is why people will always cheap out on not wanting to get better or invest in working out or coaches or trainers because they always think, like you said, I'm good at one thing, then I can be good at this by myself. But
Mhm.
they'll buy new phones, new cars, new laptops, new houses, but they'll never spend a dime investing in their body.
Yeah, literally it's that applies to literally every single thing in people's lives.
Like I just I don't think I can wrap my head around that. Like why people are so willing to like throw like everything in the kitchen sink they have in investing in spending money on things that are replaceable, except for the one thing that they have that can't replace their body. Like
That's a good sales pitch right there.
but that's the thing is like I used to think like,
Right
oh,
there.
you have to like mwahaha and plan and do something crazy, but it's like, oh, it's literally just giving them bars, but like in a nice way
Yeah.
and showing them, well, you're willing to spend 20 grand in a car, but not a quarter of that on your body. when your car could literally get totaled tomorrow and you have to go replace it anyways. Like,
No, I agree. I agree totally, man. No, I used to think that same thing. I was told the same thing growing up. Then I realized like I started reading business books and things like that, watching business content, entrepreneur content. I'm like, okay, well, sales is pretty much a key function of any business. So whether I think it's good or bad is irrelevant. I have to learn this. You know what I mean? So it didn't really matter how I felt about what it was. Is like, oh, businesses have to sell. If you're not selling, you're making no money and you're not even in a business, or it's not a business. It's a fucking hobby, right? Like I saw Kevin O'Leary, he's like, if your business is not profitable in 5 years, it's a hobby. Like if your business, because everyone says they have a business, it's like, bro, that's not really a business. You know what I mean? Like it's like a thing you're doing, but it's not making money. And yeah, it's not really a functioning business. Most people just create jobs for themselves, including myself. But I think that's kind of the first step into like really building an automated business. But you know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, it is. It's a, yeah.
no, the Kevin O'Leary, like, bro, Kevin O'Leary, I read like reading his books was like me taking the whole bottle of red pills at once. Like, especially when it comes to, um,
Just
like just giving people extreme bars, like so ruthless, just no filter whatsoever. But honestly, that's kind of what you need. Like he's the kind of person he's like, I don't tell you what you want, I tell what you want to hear, I tell you what you need to hear. And I think one of like his main philosophy, I love the fact that he says this, and it's so tough to hear, but if you can like accept it and use it to make you better, you'll be unstoppable. He's like, my goal is to be the merchant of truth. I always want to tell you what you need to hear versus what you want to hear. And there's a famous clip that he talks about in the book, the cold hard truth about men, women, and money, like one of the ones he wrote. And I used to think, again, people say, oh, he's so mean, he's an asshole on TV, but it's like, no, he's actually the best of them all. And that's why he went from Dragon's Den to Shark Tank. That's how good he was, because he just kept like, he was like Rich Piana, off camera, on camera, same guy, didn't matter. And there's a clip of a woman who's like trying to sell some business or whatever on Dragon's Den. And she's like crying and upset. And he goes, he's like, life is hard. Money doesn't care. And like every time I show it to my buddies, like we're always like laughing and joking because it just seems so like outrageous. Like this
harsh.
person's like so vulnerable. He's just cramming on them. But he talks about it in the book. He's like, it was one of the worst things I ever saw someone do, trying to use their tears to manipulate someone in sales. And he's like, and Brett, one of the dragons, went and actually bought the thing out of pity for her. And he's like, kids at home who are watching, don't do that. Always separate emotions and business if you want to be successful. And it sounds horrible, but like it's
It's true.
it's true.
Yeah.
It's
Unless you
true.
want to get burned.
Yes. Like look at pro sports, like no loyalty, and how can people go from this team to that team and rivals, and how can you cut this player money? That's how, because they
Yeah.
don't want to get fired, because they want to succeed, because they want to make money.
Yeah, no, I agree, bro. And that's when people are like loyal to their jobs and companies. I'm like, bro, these people, if they look at their finances at the end of the year and they are, in the hole a couple 100,000, they are looking just at employees that are not totally necessary. You're gone, you're gone, you're gone, you're gone, you're gone. So it's like to have you know what I mean? They will drop you on they will fire you on the drop of a dime if the money's not there for them.
Yeah, man. It's very true. It's an unfortunate reality we have to accept, but honestly, it's, man, the fact that you know these things, I mean, obviously you've learned them from, being in the arena and playing the game. It's it's always great to talk about, share, and just make other people aware, because I think, and again, another Hormozy thing is just says a lot of stuff that's so valuable. Like whenever you're sad, it's not because of, you know, it's because of a lack of knowledge. Like there's something that you just don't know. So like the more that we kind of have conversations like this, and the more aware you can make people of the realities of business, and so they can assess what works best for them to be an employee or to be an entrepreneur, like the better off the world will be, or at least our community, I should say, one step at a time,
Oh yeah, absolutely, bro. But hey, man, it really can influence a lot of people. Even if it resonates with a couple people, like that's that's what this is all about. Like it's just such a grassroots thing that you start with, and then slowly over time it turns into a tidal wave. Like, but it doesn't start with that first little ripple in the water.
100%, man. Well, I appreciate the time you had to chat with me today, man. It was super fun, and I appreciate everything you shared about all the stories, the laughs, the jokes, and just the hard truths of being an entrepreneur.
This is the grind, man, but we love it, bro. It's what we do, man. It's what we dedicated literally our lives to. So I'm gonna keep grinding. Hopefully in a couple of years, next year, whenever we can touch base again, have another podcast and see how things are going.
Absolutely, man.